So here is our first storyteller. Evangeline Lemieux is studying anthropology and performing arts here at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. She currently works at the Performing Arts Center as a stagehand and at Kanilehua magazine as a literary editor. Her future aims include traveling the known universe, pursuing stand-up comedy, and other forms of art. And, in her words, probably getting a master's degree or having a career or something.
So I've worked at a lot of summer camps. Not like sleepaway camps, because I think that if I were around middle graders for more than 6 hours at a time, like unsupervised, my last remaining thread would snap. No, I've only worked at day camps. My purview as a performing arts student situates me well for this work, because most of us are probably going to end up being teachers anyway. The duties are pretty simple. Herd kids in lines from activity to activity, supervise them while they do their crafts, and make sure that none of them smash their little skulls open on the blacktop during free play. The most complicated bits are the conflict resolution. Kids fight. They cry and hit and bite. They haven't learned how to be passive-aggressive yet. They can't just keep it all inside like the rest of us. At one camp, the children were given pool noodles to play with at recess. There was no swimming pool at this camp. And the only use for a pool noodle outside of the water is violent assault. And it takes kids like 10 seconds tops of free association to get from pool noodle to like misdemeanor. For the first few days, this was fine. Hear me out. It was okay because they were just getting in pool noodle fights. They weren't pool noodle bullying each other. That lasted 3 whole entire days, to my surprise. On the third day, there was a commotion out in the yard. I went out and I saw 3 boys beating on a lump on the ground with their pool noodles. The lump was a smaller boy who was curled up in the fetal position, making kind of a critical malfunction sound. So just like that, pool noodles, which had been everybody's favorite thing about free play, were outlawed. Nobody thought that this was a fair solution. I had more than one child approach me to beg for the restoration of the noodle earnestly, which is actually something I had no control over. As an assistant, I was at the bottom of the hierarchy of camp adults. I had only a little more rulemaking power than the kids did. I may have made different choices about the pool noodles being introduced in the first place if I had had more institutional power. I've had multiple kids approaching me with more or less the same thing. I didn't do it. Why should I get in trouble for something I didn't do? Why do they take it away from everybody if only a few people misbehaved with it? And why can't I eat my snacks during crafts? It's Wednesday, and my patience, which isn't robust to begin with, was starting to wear thin. One youngster entreated me at a high volume, "It's not fair!" And I snapped back, "Life isn't fair!" Then came a moment of whiplash. I remember being a kid and having the adults in my life tell me the same trite, infuriating phrase. I remember how small and ineffective it made me feel, and how frustrated. I'm going to provide some context. I was a real bullheaded kid. I hated being talked down to, and although my parents remember me as a sweet, obedient child, a lot of other adults had a different experience. There was no phrase which got me more steamed than "life isn't fair." Life isn't fair? If life isn't fair, what on earth is the point? This attitude continued through elementary, middle, and into high school. If I found something unfair, I would make it known to everyone in my vicinity at an inescapable volume. Once I started looking for unfairness, I noticed that it was everywhere, and in fact, it had been the whole time. It was unfair that we had to sit still for hours on end with no break. It was unfair that all of us lost our bathroom privileges just because one person put tampons in the back of the toilet. It was unfair that all of us girls would get detention for wearing spaghetti straps. But the boys could play football shirtless at recess, and nobody would bat an eye. I took a vocal stand against this last one in particular, and I was shocked when nobody joined me. At the time, it didn't occur to me that maybe a lot of my peers didn't consider an arrangement where they got to watch shirtless boys play football all recess unfair. More crucially, it didn't occur to me as a young zealot that, although a lot of the teachers probably agreed with me, the issues that I raised were not and could not be their principal concern. You see, I went to a charter school, and while we did get some funding from the government, it wasn't really enough. We didn't have chemistry or pre-calculus or even organized sports or a theater program or art classes beyond the most basic. And there was seldom anything green in our school lunches. The school was understaffed. The art teacher was the Chinese language teacher, was the gardening teacher, and then that teacher retired. The school was struggling. My lens was a lot smaller then, and I didn't see all that. Now, I'm not saying that the stuff that I had noticed wasn't unfair. It was, and I'm still mad about all of it. But now I've been on the other side of the experience, where I've had to juggle all of the different unfairnesses and decide which ones to address, and more so which ones I even have the institutional power to address. However, and this is a big however, I think the phrase "life isn't fair" should go the way of the pool noodle. Kids' worries may seem inconsequential in the face of the larger context that we as adults can situate them in, but kids are people, and they deserve a more nuanced analysis than "life isn't fair." We can do better. So, in light of all of that, this is for the kid at camp. You're right. I'm sorry. It's not fair. And the world is really complicated, and I don't have time to explain all of it to you right now, and that's not fair either. But in the meantime, here, take this ball. Play with it instead. I promise I won't take it away from you. I can't offer you very much, but I can offer you that.